case, this theocracy that has run Iran since the 1980s, and so we have to wait and see what the reaction is. They had threatened in blood-curdling language, Ayatollah and others, that there would be direct retaliation against American interests in the region, and we have to wait and see whether that was just rhetoric or whether that was a genuine threat that will be followed through on. We have to wait and see what the bomb damage assessment is. Is Israel going to be content to say, we've looked at the damage and we've degraded Iran's nuclear capability enough to be acceptable? And again, speaking to a senior military official just 2 days ago, he made it clear we never said we'd get rid of all of Iran's nuclear capability. We just said that we would degrade it so it was not an imminent threat.
Ian, panel, stand by for us. We're going to go to Rachel Scott now, who's on the phone joining us from Washington, our senior political correspondent. Rachel, we are getting word that President Trump is going to speak tonight at 10 o'clock, about an hour and a half from now. But again, this is something that President Trump promised going into the election, that he was not going to be the president of forever wars. He was going to end U.S. involvement in some of these wars overseas. Now here he is initiating this attack on Iran, a country of 90 million people, and big questions not only about what comes next, but divisions within his own party and support.
Absolutely, Wynn, and we are already hearing from a number of lawmakers tonight, including Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a Republican senator on Capitol Hill, who had direct conversations with the president multiple times over the last several days, in which he urged President Trump to participate, to join Israel and strike Iran's nuclear sites directly. And we have heard from Senator Graham tonight already. He said that this was the right call, that the regime deserves it, saying, well done, President Trump. But there are plenty of Republicans who have clearly stated that they did not believe that the president should be getting involved. And for that primary reason, this is what the president ran on, being a peacemaker, pulling the United States away from ongoing conflicts, not getting the United States even more involved in ongoing conflicts. The president was asked directly about some of those words from Republicans, and he said, look, the bottom line here is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He believes very strongly in that. But undoubtedly, this is going to divide the party. And the question now is, do Republicans rally behind the president as he moved forward with this action, or do they speak out against it? We know a few did have a few warning signs leading up to it. We are learning tonight, as you said, the president is expected to address the nation at 10 p.m. tonight. And as Ian clearly noted, it cannot really be understated here, just the immense pressure that the president was under from the Israelis. I was told he was under immense pressure from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself. The president, we know, was in very close contact with him. They stayed very close over the last few days, I'm told, talking sometimes even multiple times a day. The president, a week ago, in a remarkable turn of events, said that this was possible, but that the U.S. at that point was not going to be involved. Then we saw him leave the G7 summit early to rush back to the White House, and that kicked off a series of meetings that the president was having with his national security team in the White House day after day, ultimately now leading up to this decision. We know the president was warming up to the idea, and tonight he announced it via Truth Social, and he will address the nation at 10 p.m. tonight Eastern.
Rachel Scott, thank you so much. Let's go to our chief Washington correspondent, John Karl. John, you've actually been in touch with President Trump, speaking with him over the past couple of weeks about a variety of different issues. This idea of the president warming up to the concept, the possibility of striking Iran directly, do you have any sense of how quickly that developed and where it came from?
When he told us that he was going to make this decision at the last second. I don't think that was quite what happened here, but this came together incredibly quickly. And this is, without question, the most consequential decision Donald Trump has ever made. And where this goes, will this be consistent with the promise that he made when he first got in to politics, when he first became a presidential candidate, and he talked about ending forever wars? The question now is, did he just possibly take the first step towards ending what has effectively been a forever war, which is United States adversity with Iran, something that goes back to the hostage crisis and the seizing of our embassy in 1979. Iran has been a challenge for every American president since Jimmy Carter, in many ways overshadowing other initiatives, other efforts to get objectives in the Middle East. So did he effectively put an end to the Iranian threat, or was this the first salvo in yet another forever war in the Middle East? I reached out to a prominent Arab diplomat from a country that's allied with the United States with a simple question. I think this is the question that we should all be asking: what now? What next? And this diplomat said, honestly, no clue. The Iranians have a vote now. So what happens? We have 40,000 troops roughly in the Middle East. That's a force, and it's a force that can be used to protect American assets, to attack the Iranians, but it's also a target with. And the Iranians, their nuclear program may now effectively be gone, but the thousands of mid-range missiles it has, short-range missiles it has, can be used to target not just American troops and American assets in the region, but American allies. I don't know which way this is going to go, but I can tell you this: this has the feel of a decision that is far weightier than any Donald Trump has had to make in his time as a political figure, in his time as president.
Yeah, and nobody starts a forever war thinking it's going to be a forever war. You look back at Iraq and Afghanistan, the intention was things were going to be wrapped up much, much quicker than what ended up happening. And here you have a country, 90 million people. We have already started to see some demonstrations in the streets in recent days against the United States, against Israel, and what all of this could mean going forward. The Ayatollah Khamenei, we're told that he was hunkering down in some undisclosed location, but had already named 3 potential successors. So what happens to him? How does Israel move forward? How do they go and verify what happened at some of these sites that were attacked? Let's go ahead and bring in our Matt Gutman, our chief national correspondent. Matt, you've spent a lot of time throughout this region. I know that you have a lot of sources in Israel and beyond. What are you hearing? What's the reaction you're getting tonight?
I think I just want to jump on the point that John Carl made just now, Whit, and about how historical this moment is and how weighty it is for President Trump. Are we entering into a new forever war? We have to remember that Iran is the world champion of the forever war, waging a cloak and dagger war against the U.S. and Israel, the great Satan and the little Satan, for over 40 years now, right? They have had terrorist attacks behind the scenes. They have launched small-scale attacks. They have built armies around that Ian referred to earlier, that Shia Crescent, or the Ring of Fire, in Lebanon, Hezbollah, in Yemen, the Houthis, in Iraq, another group called Hezbollah. They have effectively surrounded Israel over the past 40 years and created this bulwark, and Israel has essentially dismantled it. But Iran is not going to let this go, and they are also keen observers of history, right? In 1981, Israel, in one fell swoop with 8 or 9 warplanes, managed to destroy Iraq's nuclear weapons program in Osirak, and there was no response. In 2007, Israel did the same thing in Syria, and there was effectively no response, destroying its nuclear capability. This is different. Iran is a nation of 90-plus million people, and they showed their incredible fortitude in the 1980 to 1988 war against Iraq. They lost 1 million people. And for the Imam then, the Khomeini, and Khamenei, who is his successor, making a ceasefire with Iraq and ending that war was called drinking from the poison chalice. And basically they're at that precipice again. Are they going to make a ceasefire, or will they continue fighting? At this point, I think it's understood, again, looking at recent history, when you give up your WMD, that is all you have. Gaddafi gave it up, and we saw how he was essentially butchered in the streets after he was captured. He was overthrown. So it seems, if history is an indicator, that the regime is going to try to hold on as long as possible. You mentioned Khamenei already has appointed 3 successors. I imagine they're going to go underground, and they're going to keep fighting in any way they can lashing out at the United States and Israel with whatever capabilities they have left. And I think it would be very dangerous for anybody to underestimate the capabilities that Iran has at this moment. Even though they may be significantly degraded, they have been stockpiling them for many, many years. They are a very, very potent and capable adversary.
And Matt, thank you. And something else to watch here is the terror threat in the U.S. and around the world, and what this attack by the United States on Iran potentially does to that. Does it elevate here? I think that many would expect that it likely would. And we know that Iran has been a sponsor of terror all across not only the region but around the world, and we'll see how that plays out too. I do want to go back to the White House. I'm told our Selena Wang is there right now. Selena, you were there earlier as the president arrived for this meeting with his national security advisors. What more are you learning about the discussions and what played out in those meetings?
Well, wait, you and I were actually on the air together as that meeting with his national security team was underway, and the president for days now, he's been speaking to a wide array of his advisors and allies. In fact, right now, his Secretary of State Marco Rubio is here still at the White House, and the president has been weighing a variety of different factions. On the one hand, you have a group of Republicans, more traditional conservatives like Senator Lindsey Graham, who had been urging the president to take forceful, swift military action. Then on the other hand, you really had frustrated members of his MAGA base who were urging the president to hold back, arguing that any U.S. military intervention or action would damage the president's reputation and his campaign promise to end all forever wars. In fact, we had learned from sources that an ally like Steve Bannon, the MAGA podcaster, had actually been playing an outsized role despite the fact that he has no official government position, and that he had this week spoken on the phone with the president. He had also met the president for lunch. He was someone who was urging for restraint. And when it comes to the timeline here, the president was clearly putting positions in place in case he were to strike. We know that Americans had been evacuated out of Israel, the U.S. military also pre-positioning to defend U.S. interests in case Iran were to retaliate. But just days ago, President Trump said that he was going to give himself 2 weeks to make this decision. The thinking was that he was going to buy some time, hoping that the Iranians would come back to the table to negotiate. The Europeans had been also pressing for diplomacy, but the president also said that he wanted to make his decision at the, quote, last second before it was due. And so what we are seeing tonight is a decision that came together very quickly. But as John Carl mentioned earlier, this is potentially the most consequential decision the president has made, and the big question is what happens next. We know from sources that the president wants this to be wrapped up nicely, that he wants this to be contained. But the question is, to what degree did we degrade Iran's nuclear capabilities, and is Iran going to retaliate? President Trump, in his True Social post tonight, he wrote that, quote, now is the time for peace. The question is if he was able to achieve the two goals that he wanted, which was number one, to both end Iran's nuclear program, and number two, to also have this be a peaceful resolution, an end to the war.
Selena Wang for us, thank you. And just a reminder to our viewers here, President Trump is expected to speak in just over an hour at 10 p.m. later tonight from the White House. We'll bring those comments live as they happen. But I do want to bring in our ABC News contributor, former State Department official Steve Ganyard. Steve, also an aviation expert as well and a pilot. Steve, I'd like to ask you more about these B-2 bombers that we were getting word that they were on the move, that there were also tanker aircraft that were following them. We thought they were going to Guam. Was this just one big diversion, or is there more to this?
Yeah, the real key to